Hey, what up, Mike Crawford, Young Jerks? What's up, Jerks? I saw this lady going off on me, or this dude, I don't know who it is, in the chat, and you guys were all laughing at her. It's so funny. They're like, "You're just a." I don't even know what they're mad at me about. They're like, "Here it is. We'll just put this up. You seem to know nothing." Oh my God. Lady, I've interviewed 4 U.S. Congress reps and a U.S. Senator on this show, a U.S. Attorney, district attorneys, Mark Bederow 70 times. I think I know something. There's a lot of shit I've done actually in my life that I just don't talk about here, but I think people feel who I am, my experience in life. I don't know what your issue is, but I thought it was funny. I'm laughing. I love when people post crazy shit like this. Just get me going, because today was such a good day. Today was so good. Oh, Dr. Russell today. She held her own. I gotta say, Hank Brennan is kind of surprising me. He did pretty good today. He's not that bad. We've been bashing him a lot, but he definitely does have some skills. He's a badgerer. He's sleazy. He'll go there. But it was even hard for him to save anything with Barrows today. Barrows was that moment we've been waiting for, 2 trials. It's like, this is it. This is a done deal. It's not over, obviously. Anything can happen. Who knows what the jury thought about it? But if you're on the fence watching at home, you can't be after Barrows. You just can't be. This was such a moment. And to see this guy, calm, collected, a police officer, the way that you want to be. Like, he just didn't have a dog in the fight. Just a nice guy. Just a really nice guy. Even the anti-Karen Reed people couldn't deny that Barrows is genuine. What they had to go to is that his memory must be wrong. His memory, he must be misremembering like that other lady, the Boston police officer. So we got two. It looks like 2 special guests here tonight. One advertised, one not advertised. I'm very happy. You should be here if you're not. Let's bring up the first one, and then we'll bring up the unadvertised guest. First of all, we have a reporter who was in the courtroom today and yesterday. She's been covering the case. This is the second trial that she's been embedded in the courtroom. Very excited. She goes on LTL every Wednesday night. You can see her tomorrow night. She's going to be talking about what happens in the court tomorrow. It's going to be a half day. Very excited to have her back. Jessica Machado, make sure you follow her on Substack. We have a Substack link pinned to the chat. Make sure you follow her. Make sure you subscribe. There's a free subscription. If you have some money, kick in the monthly membership. Support Jessica. Support her reporting. It's independent. It's awesome. Look what she did today. We were posting her live tweets all today in our live stream, just like we post Bederow too in the live stream. They report. They give the updates as it's going on. Very thankful for Jessica Machado. Welcome back to the Unjerks tonight, Jessica.
Hi, bestie. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Did you hear that there's a third guest here?
I heard an unadvertised guest. I love surprises. So yes, I did. I heard.
I think you might know who it is. Should we bring him up?
Yeah, bring him in. I didn't know that you were sharing my tweets, and I'm like so focused when I'm in there. I don't get to check X at all. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and if we're not sharing them, everybody else is in their chat. We have the best chat. I love our chat during the trial. Awesome. So yeah, definitely. Let's bring up the third guest.
Hi.
What's up?
How are you?
Good. We heard the bat signal. Everyone just did. Bederow needs a show tonight. I thought you were booked, and I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it 2 nights in a row.
What the hell? Give the people what they want.
Especially after what happened today. Today was just.
Were you there today, Jess?
Yeah, I was in the courtroom today. Yes.
Wow. How did the jury react to the taillight fiasco?
I don't want to disappoint anybody, but there was much more facial reaction and reactions overall to Russell's testimony and interactions today than there were with Barrows. There was a lot of note taking with Barrows, but there was a lot of facial expressions and things that I was able to document with Russell. I think people were just more maybe astonished at what was going on with Barrows and couldn't react. And also, I was also pretty engrossed in it. So maybe I was missing some things because it was obviously very interesting testimony that we saw with the Dayton PD.
Wow. Yeah. Can't hear you, Mike.
You can't hear me? I'm on mute.
Oh,
Can't hear me?
now we can.
Now
yeah.
we can.
I don't know what's going on. I'm not on mute. That's weird. I was wondering, what did you think today?
Me?
Yes.
Um,
Am I not
that
loud
was-
enough? Do I need to turn this baby up?
You're very
What's
loud.
going I'm very loud or not loud?
No, you're loud in a good way,
I am.
not an offensive way. I mean, I thought the Barrows thing was stunning. That's maybe the jury doesn't yet have the full context, so maybe that might be why, at the moment, it may not resonate the way the people that have obsessed over this for 2 or 3 years recognize the significance. And so maybe it'll be more of a summation point, or more when they call their experts who opine that there seems to be lacking a car's impact, whatnot. But to hear a police officer come in and unequivocally say that the taillight did not look like the state police are telling you the taillight looked like, and not by a little, but by a lot, that is amazing. And in all fairness, Brennan did a really pretty effective cross of him, but he didn't change his demeanor. He was very honest. He admitted when he kind of screwed up on the photograph, if you will. He did acknowledge that his memory, maybe it's not as good, but he also was pretty adamant that I remembered what I saw with the taillight. And then he was subjected to another very good, perfect redirect, which you've seen a lot from Alan in particular. Short, sweet, hit, move on, sit down. And he did a really effective job. I think that little birthday analogy was very well done. And just reaffirming that he was quite clear what he saw. And, the jury now has proof, if you will, to conclude, if that's the way they want to go, that they planted taillight. And they don't have a burden to prove anything, but they've certainly suggested that it's reasonable that could have happened, because it doesn't match and it's not even close. And I think that when Brennan showed him the photographs and the videos, same thing with Alan, I don't think these videos and photos show exactly what Brennan thinks they do in a way that he thinks is so favorable, particularly the one on the tow truck. I mean, to me, that was the most clean view of what it was. And it seems to me that reasonable doubt was pretty much established today. And they don't have Proctor, as you know. And I think that now the DA not calling Proctor, as bad as it looked yesterday, looks 100 times worse today.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm having some StreamYard issues tonight. I'm wondering if it's affecting anything out there on YouTube land. I guess we get the sound right, but it's weird. It's having some glitching. It seems like everything's working though, so hopefully it is. If you notice anything in the chat, let me know. Jess, what did you think about the jury on his testimony today? Were they responsive to it? Did they seem like they were taking notes? Did they look like they related to him, Barrows?
So there was a lot of note taking place, talking about the taillight in particular. So there are some people that are perpetual note takers. I noted this yesterday, but one of the individuals who takes notes every day, all day long, is on his 4th notebook. So they're given one subject, spiral bound notebooks, and he is on his 4th. So he is constantly writing. So someone like that, we don't get to see any difference in how they react because it's always the same. But there are some jurors that I can pinpoint specifically who only really note take when there's something memorable. And today those people were writing in regards to the taillight when Barrows was saying that it did not look the way that it looked when he viewed it. I wanted to also say I did see some reactions on that redirect by Jackson at the end. There was a juror that was nodding their head when he actually moved out from the podium, and he was saying, so, you know, he was reaffirming that everything that the Commonwealth wanted Barrows to have testified to be true. And then at the end included that what he saw in the taillight was also true. So he kind of went through the litany of things. And there's a juror in the back row who I would say does often react, nodded their head up and down in affirmation to that. So yeah, like I said a little earlier, I think we have to step outside when I'm looking at jurors that if we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, don't know what we know. They didn't see what we saw in the last trial, or anything for that matter. So I have to sometimes step outside and say, you know what, this may be resonating with me, but they don't see it the same way. They may never know that he was not cross-examined last time in the first trial, although they did talk about it a little bit. I think this dynamic of jurors is very different than the last trial. Mark, I'm sure you know you've been in the courtroom. It's not the same demographics. And so testimony from last time about the same issue, I think is going to hit different without giving away too much. I just think there's a different demographic there. So it's all new for these jurors. The only thing too I'll mention is we heard 2 times in the past 2 days with Devers yesterday and with Barrows today, saying we can't escape the Karen Read trial on our phones. We see it, we're bombarded with it. And I feel like there is a juror that looks very uncomfortable when that was being said today and yesterday, which makes me wonder, are they really avoiding everything on Karen Read? So yeah, that was some of the reaction I saw with jurors.
So I actually haven't been in the courtroom for this one yet.
Oh, okay.
But I'm aware generally from what people have said that it's a younger crowd, if you will. And again, it's hard to label just by such broad terms. But if you do that, which we shouldn't, but what the hell, younger people generally would tend to be more distrustful of police shenanigans and just blind loyalty to the police than older established people would. And, you know, in the last couple of days, you've seen, you know, Exhibit A yesterday was just an embarrassment of a police officer. I mean, whatever was going on, whether she was being held hostage or not, her demeanor was embarrassing, unprofessional, and she should be ashamed of herself. And then you saw a guy today also called as a defense witness, which was not the first time. He actually came out, was a prosecution witness, and he did what you dream credible witnesses do. His demeanor did not budge 1 degree on direct across, even when he, I'm sure, felt a little silly with the photograph. I mean, he made a mistake. But he kept his cool. He admitted that, you know, okay, I missed that. Memories can get worse. You know, all the things that Brennan was walking him through effectively. I mean, he had a crap hand to deal with. He played it well. I don't think it's going to help him in the long run, but he did do a very good cross, I thought, in all fairness. But this guy didn't flinch and was adamant. And on redirect, you know, it was all brought home. And I'm just sitting here saying, when they tie this together, I mean, it'll be in summation. It won't be tomorrow. But when they tie this all together and you realize that there is credible evidence. I mean, this isn't some, you know, fakakta witness out of left field who is not credible. I mean, this is a sitting police officer testifying as a defense witness who testified formally as a prosecution witness, and in between trials was never contacted by the prosecution, which that looks terrible, by the way. They're hiding Proctor. They're hiding this guy. I mean, it looks terrible. And he says that taillight was there, at least the big part. And, you know, the part that he says was there that's not visible in the photograph that you see from the state police, I mean, those are all the pieces that Proctor and the other dopes found on the lawn over the course of 3 weeks. That's honestly, that's a bombshell what happened today. You don't usually see that, and it came out of left field. Nobody knew it was coming, and it now makes sense to me why I think from their perspective, I still would have done it, but why they didn't call Proctor. I mean, it's less significant now than I would have thought yesterday because of what they knew was coming with Barrows.
Like the biggest moment, I think, in the last two trials. Would you say that, Mark? Like Barrows' testimony, it felt like that today.
Yeah, I mean, having a police officer basically say that, well, I can't even say Proctor and Buchanan because there is no Proctor, but for all intents and purposes, that Buchanan and the state police are lying about what they told you about what they saw in Dighton and what they recovered and the circumstances of the recovery. And by the way, when this comes to summation and you weave it all together and you marshal all these facts, you know, you get Berkowitz, right? His miraculous discovery. And then you heard yesterday that this woman told, the FBI that Berkowitz was playing in the Sally Port on the day this happened with Higgins before any of the taillight was recovered. I mean, you put this all together and you realize you don't even have to prove that this happened, but it almost starts to sound, it's more likely than not that they did plant evidence. And if you're talking in those terms, she's walking.
Hope so. Let's hope so. I mean, geez, today was just when he put up that picture, and said, nope, that's not it. The whole chat just went crazy. Everyone went crazy.
I think what he said was absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
He was, I mean, this is what's interesting. This guy was chomping at the bit.
Yes.
To testify, and he looked very earnest because he wasn't obnoxious, but he looked pissed off that this was a sham. I mean, that's how he presented to me. And he didn't get cross-examined at the first trial. And, for all he's thinking, he's, God, I have a guilty conscience. I mean, if this comes out the first trial, you're probably not here at the second trial. Now, having said that, I fully understand why they didn't cross him at the first trial because they didn't know what they were going to get. And, you start saying, describe the crack, and it's not what you want, that's a risk that most lawyers would never take. And I think they made the right call then, just like they made the right call now in doing it, putting him up there. And I think it was devastating.
I also think too, not to underestimate, in the last trial, we had one old TV screen in that room, and it's a very different display. You've got two like high def big screen TVs in there, and that picture of that taillight was just crystal clear. It was big, it was prominent, you couldn't look away from it. And then to see it at the same time as hearing him, and Bederow was correct, he said absolutely not. It was just so affirmative, and how could you deny his feeling, his emotion, his testimony in that? And then the video of the car going on the back of the flatbed at the right afterwards, I believe, was another layer to this, where it seemed so crystal clear on the video in the courtroom that I don't recall it being that clear last time around. So visually, I think you're able to see things much more clearly. And then with Brennan's other photo, right, of the car in the other location, it's clear, but it's not quite clear that it isn't snow. You know what I mean? So it's the displays, I think, are far better this time around. And I think that added to it. But the moment when he was talking about that taillight, it was palpable. And I agree with what you're saying about him not getting crossed last time. He probably has wanted to be able to say this since last year. And I'd hate to be the person to say, had we done this, maybe we wouldn't be here, right? But it was a really big revelation, and he's probably been holding on for that the long time. Also, too, remember when he said, nobody asked me? Remember he was questioning him about why he didn't give more detail about it. He's like, nobody asked me. It kind of lent to it not being an effective moment on the stand for him, where had someone asked him, he would have elaborated on it. He was ready to go back then, but nobody did it right the first time.
So the cynic in me wonders about that too. And there's no evidence of this, but you go back to the first trial and he described a crack or whatever it was. And he's talking to Lally, who has spoken to him. and Lally does not ask him to describe the taillight. That's a red flag to me. I mean, why wouldn't you do that if you're calling him? I mean, I'm starting to think that the prosecution called him last time out of fear the defense would, just to kind of maybe keep them from doing that. But if you're the prosecutor and you're calling him and you're admitting that he's going to testify something about a taillight, and you don't ask him, what do you mean? And you don't show him that picture, I'm sorry, but I start looking at someone like Lally, I'm saying, he knew. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, if that's true, I don't know that. Obviously, this is just lawyer brain, common sense, having dealt with a lot of misconduct in the past. If he knew that he would have said that, and he didn't disclose that to the defense, that is an egregious, hideous discovery Brady violation. I mean, that's what he testified to today was highly exculpatory. And you start to wonder that this guy really was chomping at the bit. I mean, he drove to the Omni Hotel as an sitting police officer to meet with the defense to talk about getting a subpoena and make it clear I'm cooperative. That's not common to help a murder defendant.
Police officer helping a murder defendant.
Willfully.
No.
Gleefully. I mean, he felt like, I got it off my chest.
Yeah.
Now, also, like, the sadist in me also says you still should call Proctor, by the way. And now that the jury knows that, they're not going to do it. There's no way. But, you know, talk about him really being in the box. You know, I mean, obviously the jury's going to know about this. And, you know, the other benefit you get is now Buchanan is, I mean, what do you think the jury thinks of Buchanan? Who do they think is more credible? And I'm not talking just about him saying one said the taillight looked like this, the other one said the taillight looked like that. Look at the demeanor of these two men.
Demeanor says everything.
Okay, on direct, you know, Buchanan's got his arm on the rail, Mr. Arrogant, you know, Sergeant. But on cross, look at him. He was wretched. He was obnoxious. He was difficult. It was like extracting teeth to get him to say anything. I mean, you give the jury a choice about who's telling the truth about all this. I don't think anybody doubts that Barrows is telling the truth. Now, you know, could they say, well, maybe his memory's a little off? Maybe, but that's a tough break for the DA too, coming right after Dever, who says I have like false memories of everything. I mean, which is it? You know, I mean,
can't have it both ways.
You're right.
I also felt that, you know, I know that you said Barrows held his own, but I actually felt that when he was kind of caught in those moments with the memory issue, his tone went down a little bit. He was speaking at a lower tone. I think he was really beating himself up over it, that he was getting jammed up there, which it made me sympathize with him, made me kind of feel a little bad for him, which I also feel like lent to credibility. I mean, you also had Russell that admitted about her conversation with Alessi in the car, right? So Brennan really got the both of them in two different moments today, where if you're a team Brennan or team Commonwealth, you were kind of probably celebrating those little mini wins there. But I think I saw with the jury for Russell, sympathetic eyes and sympathetic, you know, facial expressions. And I have to think that they were probably feeling that same way too, because it was very similar in style. He extracted these, you know, conversations or these moments with Barrows that, you know, kind of made them kind of like second guess themselves, you know, and I don't know if the jury is feeling comfortable with Brennan making them second guess themselves like this.
I don't know. I mean, I thought his cross of Russell, I mean, the image I have is like, you know, a fish out of water flopping around. Just, I mean, I don't think it was about 5 hours of not much. You know, you run the risk of some people being offended by his tone. I mean, he's just kind of not a charismatic lawyer anyway, very skilled lawyer, but he's not charismatic at all. His tone, he just tends to get, I mean, it's his nature to get worked up. And I think some people might have a problem with the way he treated Dr. Russell a little bit. He didn't do that with Barrows. He was very kid glove with Barrows, which also suggested to me he was stunned. I mean, he was knocked down.
Well, he was until the moment where he said over here. So
Right.
that moment was, I mean, I said to myself, I felt like I could have heard a snap at the same time. It was like a dog, that
Yeah.
he was addressing. And I thought it was demeaning, and it was very sharp, and it was almost like, and then I tweeted this, and I don't know if anybody saw it because it kind of got buried, but right after that, they called a sidebar. Jackson called a sidebar. And as Brennan was walking towards the sidebar, he walks towards the O'Keefe galley. And the woman in the first row, he was walking towards, heading, and he smirked at her. Right after he did the over here comment, and she actually turned towards the woman on the side of her, and she smirked to that woman and then took a sip of her water. It was like such a cocky glance and smirk from Brennan as he was walking to the sidebar seconds after he said over here. And it was in that moment where I was kind of like, he's got some balls there that I hadn't seen before. Like it was just a very weird moment. Over here was such a like piercing statement in that room. It felt like he mistreated the witness in that moment, and you could tell Jackson stood up. I don't know if you could see it on the screen, but he stood up instantly. Yeah, he was really wanting some sort of closure with that and to make it stop.
I mean, I don't know what he thinks is funny, because he had a really bad day, and it all goes down to, I mean, they have the burden of proof. They're the ones that have to carry the day on all these issues, and I don't think he got anywhere with Russell. Not really. I mean, her opinion was very firm. He tried to pick and pick. At times, he invited her to speak and just dig deeper into her opinion. And if he thinks that the jury's going to believe that she's just some crazy old lady from California who had nothing better to do than immerse herself in it, that's fine. But I don't think that's going to get anywhere. So I think she was very effective. Certainly, he didn't discredit her. Not enough that they would need. And the takeaway from Barrows isn't going to be, well, he misspoke about a photograph. The takeaway is going to be, why the hell does the taillight not look like the same when the cops first got it? When, again, a neutral cop, and this was very effective direct examination. You don't know the Canton police or the state police. You have no affiliation. You don't know the cast of characters, the Alberts, the this, and you're just a cop. You're just there to do what you do, and that's what you saw. And there's no recovery from this. I mean, even with a nice cross that he had, how do you counter this when you have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and you have a police officer who's active duty, who should not be testifying for the defense, is testifying for the defense, and he basically nukes your whole theory of the case in 5 minutes.
When you think it can't get any crazier, like just after 2 trials and all of this, there's been so many. I mean, just yesterday was wild. Just hearing about the FBI, and we haven't even touched that. It's like every day gets just a little bit more.
They're screwed because this was bad, and you haven't even had the ARCA guys come in yet. Yeah. And they're, I mean, you could look, to me, again, I would have done the ARCA guys first, who would have been the most perfect setup in history to Barrows, by the way. If they said no car accident, and this guy says that taillight didn't look like that. But whatever. The point is, it's already out there. And then here come the scientists who are going to say, yeah, that taillight wouldn't be like that, and he wouldn't look like this. And it's going to click in their head at some point, summation most likely, that the evidence tends to show that the taillight is not there naturally, which means it's there unnaturally, which means, as offensive and scary as it sounds, somebody put it there. And the most obvious candidate to be involved in that is the corrupt, disgraced, terminated trooper who the prosecutor is too chicken shit to call. I mean, right. This is not a position of strength for them.
Going back to Dr. Russell, too, by the way, there was that moment where he questioned her memory and she gasped out loud. Yeah. You could hear it in the courtroom. I've heard the replay since then, and it was far more audible. But right at that moment, or just before that, there were some note takers in the jury who had their notebooks out, but one of them closed their notebook and held it up to their chest. And usually she's not taking it back out again. And she indicated to me like she had heard enough at that point. She was done. She didn't want to take any more notes. And there was another one who had done the same thing. And I conferred with another person in the press box. They noticed this as well, that this juror basically seemed attentive in the beginning, but I think you used the word picking at Dr. Russell. They had just checked out at that point. It was like they got what they wanted. There wasn't going to be anything else, and they weren't taking any notes anymore. And so in her testimony, like I said, we saw more visible signs from these jurors and reactions to what was happening, and watching those two kind of who were taking notes and paying attention just kind of check out. That second one was basically staring out in the audience after that, not really listening, not turning her head like she usually does, and just kind of staring out and looking around more, as opposed to paying attention to testimony.
Yeah, no, this is a tough day for the party with the burden of proof to get those witnesses to come out the way they came out. I mean, it is what it is. It's very triggering to a lot of the Twitter lawyers and whatnot, but facts are facts. That was a bad day for them. There's no way around that.
It was like badgering too. He's just getting nothing. Just keep going. Marie Russell. It was just way too long.
Well, it's even worse than that, because he made it worse by picking at the stab and picking. All it did was have her reiterate why it was the way she believed. And I even made a joke at some point that at this point, after hearing her testimony, the jury is more inclined to believe that these injuries were caused by a pitchfork, which she used as an example, than a car. Not that was their first choice. I mean, it would be dog, pitchfork, car, and he just keeps going. I mean, there comes a point where you just like, you got to cut your losses and get out of there. But that's not in his nature. I mean, and that usually probably works, but when you're dealing with experts who are more technically advanced than you are as a lawyer, you generally don't win these battles. That's what makes Bob so freaky, is that he's like on the substance of the issues, almost on the same plane as the experts. And that makes him a lot more formidable to go back and forth. But most lawyers, you can't argue with Dr. Russell, who is like, I think we said this the other night, a Swiss Army knife of doctors. I mean, she's an expert at this, that, and everything else. She's pretty unique.
Much experience. She's one of a kind. And one of the things I was thinking about too is when he's got Russell on the stand, that what Jess was talking about, that clear video screen, he kept putting up the dog bites, what looks like dog bites to me on the arm. Like, isn't that, like, to me, I look at that, it's like you just given the jury more time to absorb. Doesn't that look like a dog bite? Isn't that like a bad move, actually, to just put that up there and then say, oh, what is that? What is that?
Yeah. I mean, again, is it a dog bite? I don't know. It certainly looks like it. But the way the jury is going to analyze it is not, are they dog bites, but can the prosecution prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they're not? And They sure as hell don't look like hitting a polycarbonate taillight, which is kind of the point. And they could be dog bites. And if the jury says, well, they could be dog bites, then once again, the DA, it's time to pack up your bag and go home. You're going to lose, because these are must-have issues. And it wasn't great for them. And the defense has another dog expert still to come in. And then he's going to call a veterinarian and a dog trainer to rebut this. I mean,
I also think too, yesterday we saw, again with these screens, we saw an enlarged image of one of the puncture holes. And I was pretty obsessed with the sweatshirt last year, because it was the thing that tipped the scales for me when the Commonwealth started to say that this was pieces of the taillight that managed to hit his arm, puncture the arm, and then cause these things. But them blowing up this puncture and pointing out that there were filaments or pieces of fabric on the outside was the first time that it unlocked something for me from somebody who really pays attention to this. You're thinking if something's going in, those hairs are going in and it's staying in, but this showed that something came out. And I know it seems small, but it's something I haven't stopped thinking about. And I'm hoping that there's a juror that is thinking the same way. And again, when you've got these two massive 70-inch screens, it's a crystal clear photo and you can see these pieces of hair. It's just something that I never thought of last time that I thought was really smart to bring up this time.
I think it is. And I think, again, I've said this to Mike before, I hope they have dog people on the jury for a lot of different reasons. But one of those reasons is many people who have dogs have dealt with the agita that comes from a dog pulling on either a blanket or a shirt, get their teeth stuck in it and pull out. And what do you see? You see the thread come. That's exactly what you see.
Yeah. It was effective. It's lingered with me. And I'm still really salty about the Commonwealth putting that sweatshirt in a plexi, which made it seem as thin as the t-shirt, which was also in a plexi. But when you look at the photos on the screen, you're seeing them for what they are. There's a depth there. It's a thick sweatshirt and it takes a lot to puncture it. So again, I'm obsessed with the screens. I think it's a game changer. It really makes a difference on viewing the evidence. And if I'm correct, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, they don't get these photos again at deliberation time, do they? Are they allowed to look at these photos or are they? I remember last year they don't get everything. They get it all?
If they're in evidence, they get it. And they can certainly request. I mean, they'll have access to it. Everything but the cert report, right?
It looks good on the screen.
Yeah.
You've been bitten too. Like I've been bitten a lot. Like not vicious bites either. Like most dog bites are not vicious. Usually they just go through. Usually they just go like that. They just go right through the clothing, but don't even touch the skin. But they leave those little holes. I've seen that so many times. So, and sometimes they do obviously hit the skin. You know, like even with claws, it's funny. Like they always go here. Like I've had claw, even friendly dogs that greet me. They go like this. Some of them, always right here. So to me, dog person, it looks like dog claws. It looks like bites. That's what it all looks like. I just hope there, like Mark said, hope there's dog people on there that have a lot of experience with dogs. At least one person.
The problem the prosecution will have is that if there are people in the jury room talking exactly how you're talking now, which is, I don't know that they're dog bites, but it sure as hell feels like it could be. That's all they need. I mean,
the other thing too that Dr. Russell said today multiple times was parallel. So when you're thinking of, the shattering of, a taillight, it could not possibly be in multiple clusters parallel like that. And I love that she used that word a couple of times because, again, it was that moment. And I saw a lot of note takers when she was saying parallel. I could be wrong, but I thought I saw someone drawing a picture. We have a doodler, and wow. I thought I saw drawing a picture and then kind of like squaring it out like as maybe a diagram when she was talking about the parallel piece too. So that was another piece of it. I was like, you're thinking it's getting hit and it's going to splatter and shatter this thing. How are we getting clusters of identical parallel lines?
That makes sense. He's throwing out the possibility of the bushes. And I'm sitting there thinking, my guy, what are you doing? Like you're blowing up your own thing here. I mean,
change it again. Yeah.
Kind of losing the focus here. You need this to be from the car. He didn't get, hit by the car and then fall and scrape across a bush and roll 20 feet into the middle of the lawn. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Where are the bushes too? Here's a question from Karen. She said, please ask Jess about the female cop yesterday and the jury reaction to her. What did you think about the jury as they're watching her testify?
So there's one juror, and I nicknamed him Smirky. Smirky Smirks. And at first I thought, am I not saying this properly? But he smirks, and it's usually in the affirmative for Karen Reed's side of things. So he was doing a lot of smirking, a lot of head shaking. And then So there was a person in the first row that got moved to the back. Two jurors swapped seats. I know that you guys saw that last week. I think it happened. I wasn't in the courtroom when it did, but now that juror that got moved to the back sits on the side of smirky juror. And they had a moment yesterday during that testimony where they looked at each other and laughed and reacted. I know that's frowned upon, so I'm hoping they kind of keep that under wraps a little bit more. I only like seeing the jurors react once or twice. I know it's good for me because that's my thing. People like to hear it, but for the sake of Karen, I always worry about transparency when it comes down to whether they're picking alternates or not. And I have in the back of my head that if they show too much emotion, that they could not be selected for the jury. I mean, I can identify, I believe, 3 people who are often shaking their head against, testimony that are pro Karen Read. And if those 3 people end up becoming alternates, I'm going to just lose my mind because the fix is in. So I love a little bit of reaction. I'll be honest with you. There's one other juror that yesterday during that reaction who was arms crossed and eye rolled once. But I was actually, I hate to say it, but I was so busy watching her. I had stepped out for a minute to jump on a case in Marlborough that we had a migrant rapist child. And so I wanted to get on that. And I jumped on that Zoom. I missed kind of a good chunk of that. And when I came back, I mean, it was still happening, but I was kind of engrossed in what was happening myself. It's hard to be a journalist or a reporter when you're listening to that kind of testimony. It's so outrageous. You can't believe that she's talking that way, the defensiveness. So, I was feeling just like a regular, like a juror myself there watching it.
It's hard for a lawyer too. You don't see what you saw yesterday. I mean, there are hostile witnesses, there are confrontations, but you don't see a police officer come in and be hostile to the point where the only word that came to my mind yesterday was childlike. I mean, her responses to Alan were childlike about, just like you screwed up my name, I screwed up. I mean, seriously, I mean, you're carrying a loaded firearm on the streets, going into, perhaps some very dangerous situations, and you have to deal with people, and this is how you behave in a court of law. You can't help but wonder how she behaves on the street. I don't know, but her demeanor was as bad as you'll ever see. And it was a risky move to call her. I mean, it really was. And in the beginning, it sounded like, yeah, this might have been a mistake, but she gave any ground back with her attitude such that, when she leaves the stand, there's really 2 things you're remembering, right? That she told the FBI that, Higgins and Berkowitz were doing that. And then in her nasty, nasty tone, she said, well, yeah, I said that, but it was a false memory and she's nasty. I mean, that's your takeaway from her. And again, that's not good for the prosecution.
Can I ask a question of Mark? What does it take to identify someone as a hostile witness? Like, what's the threshold?
Not just that you call her in a way, where it could be risky. So most judges would not, in my experience, allow you to just immediately call that person as a hostile witness. The word hostile is a term of art. They don't have to be nasty, hostile. She was literally and figuratively a hostile witness. I mean, once a witness is being antagonistic and difficult, evasive, obnoxious for the sake of being obnoxious, she definitely could have been deemed a hostile witness to the point where, I mean, look, they did go to the bench at one point yesterday. And after that, Alan was asking some leading questions, which gave me the impression that he was complaining and saying, can I do this? But when the examination continued after those few questions, it kind of went back to the way it was. So it sounds like she did not give him full carte blanche to do what he wanted, because normally if they're hostile, you can cross-examine them, you can lead them, and then you can just, empty the tank. And if he had a real chance to go after her in a real cross-examination, I mean, that would have been blood sport and, must-see TV. I mean, it would have been much worse than it was. But she definitely was a hostile witness. I mean, by definition and what you saw.
show. Remember that one? I can't remember the name of it. It was the cartoon one. We won't name it. We'll probably get in trouble on
What?
YouTube.
Oh,
I don't know. You remember that one where they used to have like celebrities that the matches to the death?
oh yeah, yeah,
Claymation? Yeah.
yeah. Those
Celebrity
were,
death match. That's what
yeah.
it would have been like. Yeah. But, Brian from LTL labeled her Veruca Salt. I thought that was funny because she really looks like that. Like she has that kind of resemblance. It's funny.
Yeah, and Daddy, get me off the stand. I want it now. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Say my
yeah.
name right. Say
No,
my
she
name. You
does.
didn't get my name right.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, look, she got put up there, obviously, as a hostage. But if she had said everything she said yesterday, but with like a nicer tone,
Yeah.
then I don't know how impactful it might have been. I mean, I think it's still, look, the FBI, you told them this, that's a big deal for the defense case, especially, again, they know things we don't know. They know who is coming up next. I mean, so it makes sense. You get that out, and then here comes Barrows to just like nuke the whole thing over the taillight after, Higgins and Markowitz could have been playing with it. But there was no reason for her to act like that.
So I had to check in with the Baghdad Bob crew there. He wasn't there, but Kevin had his show going today. Like the last 5 minutes I just watched. It was hilarious because they tried to attack Barrows. They put up a picture of Barrows with some free Karen Reed people. It looked like, some people saw him at a bar after the last trial. It was over a year ago. And you could tell that Kevin was like trying to, Barrows is a free Karen Rita. He's a turtle rider. You could tell he was trying to go that way. And even Kate Peters was like, I don't know. That's like a year ago. That seems kind of sus. Like, then they changed the whole thing to like, basically Brennan discredited him. He forgot his memory was screwed up. And it was just hilarious. I mean, can you imagine being them today, watching that?
I mean, look, a lot of them, they're invested in this as if it somehow affects them and their credibility, if you will, for their existence to get, 500 people to watch them and do whatever it is they do, like rides on the outcome here. And, they're very aggressive. Obviously, they call everyone who disagrees with them stupid. They come after very intelligent people, whether they be lawyers, journalists, whoever. I mean, it's crazy when, for me, it's always been just look at it. It's a bad case. It's not trying to advocate about, this person is great and this one's not. I mean, if you look at criminal cases for a living, again, through a lawyer's eyes or even a journalist lens or even just a commentator's lens, it's just a bad case. And there's nothing wrong with saying this evidence stinks and why that devolves into these personal crazy towns. I don't know, but I assume they feel very bad. They'll never admit it, but if they think this is going well, they're wrong. I mean, it's, again, the jury ultimately will decide. But if your defense of the day is, well, like Wendy Murphy that said Barrows was useless to the defense, you can argue that he did minimal damage. If you think that was useless to have a on-duty police officer who's a very credible guy come up and say, I was there and I stared at the taillight and I know what it looked like and it wasn't that, that's not useless. That's actually very, very helpful. And if the jury finds him credible, it's a headshot. Game's over. Like if the jury literally says, I believe everything that guy said, they're done.
Believable when someone said that it wasn't a glance. You were sitting in that garage. You just didn't walk by it once. You were sitting in that garage looking at the car. Like you were sitting there for like, I don't know how, he couldn't tell you how long, but I'm guessing it was at least, he said the whole time basically. So I'm guessing he was there at least a half hour. Just look, I mean, when you're staring at a car, you're going to notice it.
And then
there was a point when he, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say the first round that he went with him and was asking him about how long, he couldn't give it. But the second time he did say about 20 minutes. He said, about 20 minutes. And almost everybody who takes notes was taking notes at that time. It was almost like I was relieved that he went back because I also didn't know the time. So it could have been anything. I think he first said like it was a few minutes to a few hours, I think. And he's like, oh, I'm not really sure. It was good to have him go back to that the second time. And he carved out 20 minutes. And you got a good visual with the pictures. And you're thinking, okay, you're standing in an open garage. You know, it's snowing outside. You didn't really go in the house. I also thought that this might have been the first time that the Reeds were pointed out in the audience, like they walked over to them and pointed to them. I noticed Nathan Reed came back to the courthouse. He had left and came back. And so I can't help but think anytime they mention the family, they all want to be there together. So Nathan came back. But, you know, you got a really good visual of that morning, and you kind of get the idea of him standing around, lingering, talking, and being adjacent to that vehicle long enough where I felt that that made it credible. If you said, well, you know, for a minute or two, I mean, 20 minutes, you're kind of hanging out. Who hasn't hung out in a garage for 20 minutes, you know, shooting the shit with somebody? So it really kind of added depth to that whole thing.
He did. And, you know, there was something else he testified to that was really sneaky good for the defense. And it's a little under the radar because obviously the lead is going to be the taillight, and they'll have to come back to this. But the macro theory of their case is that the police were incompetent and or corrupt. And they tunnel visioned this case. They skipped things. They did this. This guy also nuked the DA on the fact that Proctor went down there and he was taking the car no matter what. And he had no real basis to do it as an investigator with an open mind. He certainly had reason to be suspicious, and, you know, probable cause can develop and lead you to do things. But he called and told the local police, we're coming down there to take a vehicle at a time in this investigation when the information that should have led them to be a car accident was because Jen McCabe said so. Really, I mean, maybe a few other things. This is really weak stuff. I mean, to me, this is why I would still want to drag Proctor in and just club him over the head with all of this. They're not going to do it. I know that, and I get it. I totally get it. But there's a real chance here to just drag him through this and drag him up and down the court for hours with this stuff. But either way, I mean, you had Barrows confirming that they were there to take the car.
Well, I thought you were going to say, when you said that, you know, there was something here that went under the radar, I thought you were going to say that Jackson brought up that not only Brennan was hammering him, you didn't take a photo. You could have taken a photo. You didn't take a photo. And then Jackson linked it all together and was like, did Proctor take a photo?
Yeah,
he was actually the one that was part of this investigation.
I thought that and I thought he also used them to like kind of play the role almost like Michael Easter, like even, you know, the crime scene stuff. Like, it's weird. Now they're asking the prosecution defense wants to bring in Michael Easter again. What did you think about all that, Mark?
Well, I guess to kind of put a bow tie on this point first, yeah, I think it was very effective the way he was talking about, you know, obviously Proctor not taking pictures and all of that sort of thing. And to me, that was also indicative of Brennan a little bit stunned. And, you know, sometimes the brain goes faster than it should. And in the moment, your gut tells you if this guy didn't take pictures or do things, that can on some level discredit what he's saying. But if you take a step back, slow down, think of the big picture, he's not the guy there who should be taking pictures. It's Buchanan and Proctor, and they didn't do it that day. They didn't do it the next day or the next day. And then you get the famous Sally Port, this is how it appeared. And, you know, yeah, I think you're right. That is a very effective point. I mean, as far as Easter, they make a really interesting argument. She's not going to allow it, I don't think. But they make a good point that they really only called two cops who had nothing to say. And you told us we couldn't do this because, you know, we would have vigorous cross-examination and all this stuff. But these guys aren't giving us an inch and saying anything. And so the jury is left in the dark with all the crime scene stuff. And I think, I mean, they ought to be able to do it. They ought to be talking about the non-secure crime scene evidence, the lack of a chain of custody and all these other things. I mean, look, for example, You've seen evidence that, Buchanan or somebody mislabeled bags. They pull out the wrong shoe. They don't take photographs when they're recovering all this evidence, and they're saying we didn't have to do it. It would be devastating for an actual professional to come in and say, when they can't vouch your evidence properly, there's no integrity. Like, how do you know it's the right thing? When they don't do this right, they don't secure a crime scene, anything could have happened. We don't know. I mean, you could go on and on. They don't take pictures. You run into this problem where they're attacking Barrows, but we don't know. If Proctor takes a picture, we're not having this discussion. So, I mean, they have a really strong argument for it.
I mean, he was in charge. Barrows wasn't doing the investigation. He was just there. Here's a question. Singa Funga says, this is for Mark. How sleazy is it? You see why I know it's for Mark? How sleazy is it to ask in the affirmative? You were shown this at the last or what you testified at, right? Question mark. When you know he wasn't shown the photo. Did you catch that? Do you want me to put it on the screen? We're having some issues with the screen stuff, but I don't want to block out Mark. But that's the question.
Well, I'm not going to say it's that sleazy. I mean, certainly on the scale of relativity of the things that Brennan has done, this doesn't really register high up some other examples. But, I mean, the guy testified that he saw a photo. He testified that his memory was airtight. Brennan knows he didn't see a photo. I mean, look, that's just good impeachment. I can't fault him for that. I mean, you want to string it out and let this guy tie a rope around his neck as much as he can. I mean, that was effective impeachment. The only problem that Brennan had was the guy, he ate it. He ate it well. I mean, you said he got a little sheepish or down on himself, but that's like disappointment, not shifting it. He didn't try to weasel out of it. He owned it. And after he owned it, he didn't back down and just roll over. A lot of witnesses at that point are dead. They just roll over, and all they're thinking about is, I'll say anything that will make you not yell at me so I can get off the stand. He didn't do that. So, I mean, he was really impressive, even though he got tripped up on that. He explained it. The redirect was fine, but I don't think it was a sleazy cross. I think it was an effective cross. It's not going to help them in the grand scheme, but I can't fault Brennan for the cross.
You did say something earlier that he had skills. I agree with that. Brennan definitely has some skills, doesn't he? I mean, we're seeing that. He's not a bad attorney. He's not perfect, but he's pretty good in a way. He's got some skills. He's
just not likable.
Yeah.
And he's not charismatic. And he does things that I think are very close to the flame. But beyond that, he's a very skilled lawyer. He's a very good lawyer. I think he has a losing hand in this case. I think you saw it today. And, he's going to have to answer for that, or actually Michael Morris will have to answer for that, for why we wasted a couple $1 million for this fiasco. But he's a good lawyer. He is.
I think too, for those of us that watched the last, obviously our jurors, but for us, we've got Lally as our first rounder. And right. I mean, the skill set is far superior in comparison to Lally. I've coined the phrase like Lally would never. Like he didn't have it in him to do any of the things that we've seen Brennan do. And so it's easy for me to say he's he's doing a great job because I'm comparing him to the Commonwealth the last time around. But my takeaway from Brennan today is he's good enough that he's making me uncomfortable. He's good enough where there were moments where I hated him in that, you know what I mean? If you're a Karen Reed supporter and you're watching him and, I was like, I don't like what he's doing to Barrows right now. I don't like that, questioning the memory of Dr. Russell. Like he was a menace, he was a villain in that room today. And I thought he had some really good moments, but I agree overall. I think, listen, I always put the jurors as being just relative normal middle of the road people, and the takeaways from the Barrows are far more than those moments that we saw Hank do well. With the Russell one, it went on so long. I'm hoping things weren't lost. You know what I mean? With the time being chipped away there. But with Barrows, it was very compact. It was short and sweet. And Jackson coming back on the redirect was also very like pow, pow, pow. So I think it was just a very compact testimony overall for someone who brought so much to the case. But I was hating Brennan in there today. Like, just he was too effective for me at a couple of moments.
Yeah, I mean,
like Street Fighter.
He did a good cross. I mean, his biggest thing is sometimes he just keeps going, and brevity is, like, I think his examination of Russell was probably 2 hours too long. But you've also seen him fall into traps on redirects and recrosses. Like, the amount of damage that he has done on because he just can't let it go. And if you kind of juxtapose it against Allen and his redirects are textbook. It's not meant to be a whole nother round of all this. It's to like bring the points back and leave the jury resonating with the larger picture. And he's done that. And even Bob, who, look, yes, he can go on for a long time, certain times, but there's a method to the madness. When he was dealing with, what do we call him? Other Dr. Wolf, right? I think that's the name. Other Dr. Wolf, the neurologist. That cross-examination was probably 15 minutes or thereabouts, where, you're thinking, is this going to be a 4-hour thing? It's 15 minutes. And it was effective. He got the points out.
Right.
We get a question from Lauren about do you have any thoughts on the move for mistrial? You saw the mistrial today. The judge ruled against them. What did you think about that? What was that all about, too?
It was never going to happen. I think they're right on what Brennan did was wrong, and the judge's ruling was incorrect. Not so much for the mistrial. I mean, a mistrial is the ultimate remedy. I mean, the case would be over, and if a mistrial is caused by the misconduct of a prosecutor, it's over. Meaning, like, over, no retrial. Everyone go home. So, do I think that she was going to do that off one comment about DNA? No. The problem is they made a strategic decision not to introduce the dog DNA issue. That was their right to do it. They probably should have, knowing. But Brennan's strategy clearly has been whatever warts he perceives in his case, he just tries to wish them away down the memory hole like they never happened. So Proctor, we're just not going to mention him. Higgins is a real issue. And all the people in the house, anyone with the last name Albert, we're just going to pretend they don't exist. The dog, we're not going to talk about anything that's even going to mention the dog. He's not doing it. But then when he's trying to impeach Dr. Russell, he asks a question about DNA in a way implying that there was DNA and how it was done. And he's basically an unsworn witness. There's no evidence of it, but he's stating it and giving the jury the impression that there is, and even though the jury doesn't have any of that evidence, and she has to deal with that. But the problem is you can't challenge the evidence because it's not in evidence. You just have Brennan asking a few questions. And the reality is, if you remember, the DNA, the swabs were done by Proctor. Well, guess what? That may make it unreliable. You don't know if he swabbed on the arm. That might make it unreliable. I believe one of the scientists who analyzed it, not the woman in California, but the one in Massachusetts, didn't she fail her proficiency exam or something? Time, could it have been pig DNA? Remember that? And could that come from treats? There's a whole can of worms and a whole rabbit hole you could go down. But how are you going to do that? Because it's not in evidence. It's just Brennan saying there's DNA or wasn't DNA, whatever it was, and no context. And that was inappropriate. What shocked me nothing the judge does at this point should shock anyone. What she screwed the pooch on this. Mistrial, I think, no. But you have to caution the jury, like disregard all that. And the sanction should be, you're done with this line of inquiry. Don't mention it again. What she does is she comes And she says, I'm not giving you a mistrial. Your rights are saved, which is some informal judge speak for you made a record in case you need it on appeal. You have a record, you need a record to appeal something. But then when she gives her opinion, she gives no opinion other than I'm denying it. So if there were an appeal, you're not even in position to say what the hell the judge's thinking was. It's just she denied it, which an appellate court would not look at favorably, by the way, when a judge just off the cuff does that. But then she says, no, I'm going to let you go. Keep going. Do all you want with this. That was a mistake.
When she said that about the line of, when she said that about the line of questioning, I think Alessi stood up like to either object or to ask about it. And she said, no, I'm going to allow that line of questioning. He literally put his hands out like this, like he was like, what? Like he couldn't believe it. Just to let you know, I had absolutely no belief that she was going to allow this. From the minute it started and the arguments were taking place, her demeanor was laid back. She was twirling in her chair. She put her glasses on a couple of times and took a couple notes. It was, from the get-go, and just saying it's frustrating to be in that room and to be able to see it all happening. You can see Alessi really giving it his all. He pumped his fist on the podium, which Brennan said, you can pump your fist all you want or slam your fist, it doesn't matter. Her demeanor was never attentive. I don't want to disparage her in that manner because all you need is your ears to hear, but like she was hearing but not listening. Her mind was made up right from the get-go, and it seemed like a big waste of time, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was no. And also I look for indicators after last trial when something big is going to happen. Court officers start moving around. I was like, there's not going to be a mistrial here because everybody's just kind of hanging out in their own positions.
Chill.
You know what I mean? Even if you know nothing about court or law, which I don't know any of what Mark is talking about, there was no indicators that anything was going to go down. She would have sent people on a longer lunch. She would have made moves. So, those are some things to start thinking about as we get closer to jury deliberations, especially, we're traumatized. We saw jurors dismissed already by this point last time. You start to feel that buzz around when things are happening and people are talking. So I'm on high alert for those things, but it wasn't there today.
Knock on wood. They haven't lost any jurors yet. Thank God.
No,
hopefully none of this shenanigans. Question for you, Jess. What about Alessi talking to Dr. Russell today in the limo? Any jury reaction when that came out today?
There was ping-ponging heads back and forth during that testimony. So, when people are interested and really paying attention, heads look from your attorney to your witness and attorney. And so there was ping-ponging going back and forth during that. It piqued interest. That's how I interpret when people are doing that back and forth. I can't say that I could decipher if anybody actually felt a certain way about it, but their interest level was piqued because they were moving back and forth and watching. Again, at this point in time, I've noticed there are some jurors that are just not reacting to anything, staring straight ahead, no reaction. There are some that have dropped off who I thought were kind of like a little bit more attentive in the beginning and are just not there now. I noticed one juror, though, that seems far more attentive than before. Sitting up straight, I've noticed. He's been sitting up straight more. I also noticed he was leaning forward to make like the visual of Dr. Russell multiple times today. So when she was asserting herself, which we saw her kind of come back and, reassert. In all the times I'm in the emergency rooms, like she had those moments where she was reaffirming her work history and her credibility. This particular juror was leaning forward to look down at her. He's on the other end. So I saw that reaction, but to that specifically, just a lot of ping-ponging heads back and forth. Sometimes it's funny because they all kind of move in unison. They're looking at the attorney and then they're looking at the witness. So that's what I observed during that.
Or you have any comment on any of that, or want to move on to the next thing?
No, witnesses look wherever they look. Jurors look. People. It's a courtroom. Everyone's looking around. The only thing that would be troublesome is when you see witnesses don't want to answer a question and they stare at the DA or head nod and that kind of stuff. But other than that, court is court. It is a painful match. It happens. I don't. Yeah.
We got a question, definitely for Bederow. What do you think about the Commonwealth's opposition to defendants' motion for discovery from Aperture?
I don't think anything because I'm not fully familiar with what are we talking about. What happened?
I know
now?
there's so many new motions now, right?
Yeah, I'm unaware of what are we dealing with here.
Have you seen some of the new motions? Because there's been a flurry of them. I'm wondering if you could give us even an update on some of them that you know about, if you know about any of them.
I know about their renewal on the police procedure expert, and I know about the missing witness one, which, by the way, is a major tell that because that motion was Proctor, Higgins, and Brian Albert, they're not calling any of those people. That's what that tells me. But
I've been saying they're not calling Higgins either, are they?
no, not after I saw that motion. I mean, they could.
I've been hinting around to people, but people like they're calling Higgins. I'm like, I don't think they are. I just don't think that they're calling any of them. That's
no, I don't. Yeah, I mean, again, we could be wrong. We don't know what's going on, but that with that motion being filed at this time, I would assume they're not.
Did they file something in regards to jury instructions too today or yesterday?
On both sides.
I haven't had a chance to read it, but I got it in my inbox.
I haven't either, but I've seen that they did. I've seen that they, it's the little headings on what's been filed, and there's been a lot of new filings. I just wondered, here's one. This is from, can I read this one? Mrs. K. She says, acute grief damage with Brennan. Then why couldn't Alessi mention it? Bev didn't allow it. Question mark.
What was the first part?
Acute grief damage with Brennan.
It was a bad ruling. Brennan walked right into that, leading with his chin, opened the door. She clubbed him over the head with that answer. And at that point, it should have been out, and she should have been able to talk about it at will. I mean, that's normally how these things work. I don't have a good answer for that. It was open. He opened the door. They have a right to drive a truck through it. I don't know. She's wrong.
That was a crowd favorite today too. I was looking at the chat. A lot of chats. A lot of people were happy to see that. People reacting in a positive. Obviously, Karen Reed supporters saying they were so glad that this had been brought up, and a lot of people were kind of saying this was an overdue perspective. And I agree. I don't know why we didn't get to hear more of it.
Yeah, that one's just wrong. I mean, he asked her a question. He walked right into it. I think she even said, do you want me to explain? You want me to answer it? And he said, yes. So there's no reason to shut it down at that point, but
At the beginning of the beginning of a court today, before the jury was there, I heard them mention something about Laughrin, about his testimony. I think that's maybe why he's been held up. Every day we've been expecting him. He's been in the courtroom. Do you have any idea what they're because they're not telling us. It's probably, no idea what that could be about.
I didn't see that today.
Yeah. Something about his testimony. I don't know what they're going over. So it seems like there's some kind of sidebar action going on that.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. Tomorrow? I mean, there's going to be a new witness on the stand. We know we've seen her before. What are you familiar with who's coming up tomorrow?
Yeah, I think they said Kolakithis.
Yeah. I didn't want to mispronounce her name. Thank you for saying it for me. You said it right. What do you think? Where's this going to go with her tomorrow?
Well, there were kind of like Twitter leaks about it, but you would probably know better than me. But I mean, there were something to do from what I saw on Twitter. I mean, I hate just assuming, but that I believe the theory is that Jennifer McCabe approached her in the days after this and tried to sway her to be, less Karen helpful and help us by implying or suggesting or saying, I don't know, that it's on Ring video, which of course we know it's not. That's pretty interesting.
That would be another major moment. That would be like one of those.
Not a good.
Crap.
for Jennifer McCabe if that's true. Because where she gets,
I think getting to see a new witness is very interesting. We can kind of relax a little bit where there'll be no "you previously testified" moments, which, can sometimes get us hung up on things. So it'll be interesting to see something for the first time. And then someone who, if I'm correct, was there the night, the last night that John was alive. So interacted with Karen and John. I'm interested to see if we hear any of that as well.
My recollection, I could be wrong, it's a year ago. Isn't she the one who's like really like just put together? Like they're like just good station in life, really organized, presents well, and even said at the bar how lovey-dovey they were, and then made a joke that why aren't you like that? The DA established that she's a monster who's on the verge of killing her boyfriend, and her friend in the bar is going to needle her husband by saying, gee, why don't you be like that? Ha ha. And on top of that, if she's going to be told that, come on, she's bad, it was on video, where'd that come from? I mean, it was in the newspaper, and if they're linking that to Jennifer McCabe, that'd be very interesting.
They were the smart ones too. I always say, because what did they do? They didn't go to Brian Albert. They got invited to Brian Albert's home. They were like, we're going home. That's what normal people would do with kids and stuff. I mean, you go home.
I can relate to this at this point in my life. Maybe not so much 10 years.
Right. I mean, when we were in our 20s, Mark, we would have gone out. But not now. It's like, now it's going home. I'm going home.
Lawyer and pharmacist at a bar. It's midnight. They have kids. A blizzard is coming. You know what? I'm done. I'm going home. You guys all get drunk and get wasted and have fun. I'm out of here. Like, we have things.
It's like Bruce Springsteen or something invite you back to his house. Then I may go out. You know what I mean? But if it's like just the average guys you see every weekend, come on. I'm going home. Going home. Sorry, guys. I love you, but we're going home.
Smartest choice.
I think sometimes, because I'm 49, and so these are some people that are in the same age bracket as me. I always think about myself and my husband out on a Friday or Saturday night at our local watering hole, which happens, and the people we run into. And I've almost established that there are people that fit the description of Jen and the Alberts and who these people are. And they are most certainly people that I'm not going back to their house with that night. And so, you're talking about this couple, right? Who I didn't know their background. So hearing that, it kind of makes sense. But there are those people in every community who are the degenerate partiers that are going to take it to the next level, push it as far. I mean, some of these people had been drinking for 12 hours. I mean, this is a lifestyle, that a lot of people don't identify with. And so bad stuff happens when you're doing that kind of stuff. But, and I'm generalizing here, but to know that there were some people that were apprehensive about going, Karen included, it paints a picture of what that environment was like at the afters, so to speak. Also, too, when you've got kids that are young and that are drinking, it brings out the worst in the parents. I know kids that drink a lot, right, underage, and their parents drink a lot, and then it breeds this weird environment where the parents are partying with the kids and the kids are partying with the parents, and it's just this weird group of no boundaries and things. I don't know if anybody's realizing that, but there was these younger kids that are partying there going back to drink with the younger. It's just a weird mix.
That is the strangest. My parents, that would never happen. I would never be like, Mom, I'm 22 years old. I'm having a birthday party, inviting all my friends to drink at the house. My mother, I would never ask that, period. But if I did, no way. You know what I mean? The liability alone. It's just you don't do that. It's just not, I don't get it. Normal people don't do that stuff.
Definitely not in an after hours. Maybe you're meeting up for birthday things at some point.
But if you're gonna have a snack maybe before you go out, okay, I could maybe see that, but not after hours. Exactly. That's such a good point.
And some of them, like you said, I mean, they started drinking in New York, then they were drinking in Boston, then they're drinking in Canada. I mean, it never ends. And then, the Higgins story was, after all that, I left because they didn't have any Jameson or whatever. I mean, who the hell believes that?
Nobody.
No way.
Nobody.
No good bartender believes that. And I've been a bartender, and it's like, I don't know, at some point you hit your point, you know what I mean? And yeah, no way.
Yeah.
Also, it still never made sense that he went to the Canton PD. At that point, you're going home. Like, you've got to be ready to crash.
It's calling a night. Yeah. I gotta go help Berkowitz out. I gotta move some vehicles for Berkey. Oh, come on. And then he's on the phone. That's the craziest part. Who the hell was he talking to on the phone? There's a question for Mark, Mrs. K, with another great question. She says, Mark, the defense should ask for a transparent wheel where they see all the numbers go in front of alternate selection. She's talking about the jury selection. That needs to be done in public, just like I think the press, the way they select the press. They don't do any of this transparently. Can the defense do anything? I'm sure they're asking for it.
It just needs to be done in front of the lawyers. It's not going to be transparent in the sense like where it's see-through. But
no, I don't. We don't need to see it, but the lawyers need to see it. I like that idea. That's a good idea.
You want to spin the wheel, as they say, wheel it out and come up with the number, show everyone the number. And there's no reason not to do that, especially given how probably 65% of the population, and maybe I'm underselling it, I don't know, thinks that county is, like Boss Hogg's County in Georgia. I mean, it feels so not the way it should be in terms of how a court should be, whether that's fair or unfair. And you'd think that they would do anything to get more transparency, be above board, so that, I mean, it's not good when the public has no confidence in the criminal justice system and the court system. It's not. And the reality is a lot of people don't believe they're doing it straight. And that's not an opinion. That's just the way you can tell by the way people talk in perceiving it. So that has to be a transparent process.
Well, if you even compare the way that they did it last time, and I was remembering it a little bit differently. So someone found the clip for me and we went back and we watched it. So they did the spin thing. They took it out. He looked at it. He called the number and then he put it down in front of him, right? Jim, the clerk. But Aiden made a great point. Just recently, we had that murder trial of the physician right across the hall in that same courthouse. And we watched them do that exact same process for the alternates. And that person rolled it, took it up, held it, and then put it down in front and lined all of them up so we could see them on camera. We never got to see that last time. And I just remember being in that room and thinking, I want to see that number. I wanted to authenticate what they said was actually what was pulled out. That was never done. And I say this all the time with public records requests in the government and the state. When you're trying to stop me from getting information, you always have something to hide. And when agencies or organizations are more transparent, or by default, they're in the transparent portion of things, like, you don't worry as much. This should have been already transparent. And, now I'm hoping that they make a case for this at some point and say, we want to see it. But if it changes, we're already going to see it's going to be different from the last time. The way that they pulled it out the last time, you never saw it. So either they're going to do it the exact same way and people are going to, it's going to be mayhem, or they're going to do it completely differently and you're going to see, last time wasn't transparent and now it is.
Yeah, and it's really, a mess they created. The fact that you're even talking about this with a serious face about there could be issues with how jurors were picked versus alternates last time. I mean, the fact that we're having a remotely intelligent conversation that's possible, that should never be. I mean, this is the kind of thing that serious people should never have to talk about, but that's how people feel.
The same thing with what they're doing to you with the journalism picks. I mean, they're playing games, I feel like, on the same thing. If YouTubers can hold, and the folks who are raising money for the raffles for Karen Reed can do things transparently with their raffles on a YouTube show, I think the court can do it. I mean, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. There's a lot of different ways to run a raffle that's very transparent, that's easy to run. I just don't get why they can't do it that way. Jess, do you want to comment on the journalism stuff? Because I feel like they've been giving you and Aiden not a fair shake. And I hate to even go there on this, but again, it's not transparent, and that's the question. Like, is it fair?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't want to rock the boat, and I have a lot of respect for the court system overall. And I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. But as the weeks went on and on and on, and, you know, we had some individuals that were in there week after week, and then we had some, you know, great, you know, in-depth statistical, you know, points of view being pulled from people on Twitter and saying, you know, statistically, this is almost impossible, right? The thing here is we don't know exactly what system they're using. We don't know who is actually observing it. I didn't go to that original meeting because they were holding up my press pass, but they did say it was going to be transparent. I don't want to throw other people under the bus, but there's just no transparency. We have no idea. The other thing too is, you know, they kind of make us feel as if like, hey, last time it was so bad, you should accept whatever we give you this time around. But I still think they missed the mark. There needs to be some fairness and equality there, and this wasn't it. I mean, you could literally never make it in the courtroom. You know what I mean? The way that this is going, and it doesn't make sense. I don't like, you know, I hate to take this take on it because I know some people will get mad, but if the Associated Press hasn't been there at all and they just start covering this case now, as long as they're following the protocol and putting their name in, they have every right to be there just like me. And, you know, distinguishing between independent journalists and mainstream media, everybody should have a chance if you're meeting those SJC qualifications. I just think we could have done this better. Like, you know, every week you put your name in, or you put your name in at the beginning, and we come up with a schedule so that everybody gets in there at some point. It's tough to see people like, you know, Ted Daniel, who has been covering this case, even like the off times, you know, and it's only been in there a couple times. That's tough. For me, though, I can say
seeing those other ones. Yeah, especially when you see those other ones. Like, Ted's a real reporter. Some of those other people are they're jokes. I mean, one of them's bag. We call him Baghdad Bob.
If the real issue comes down to some sort of manipulation of the system, however, to prevent the perspective of what, say, I say from actually making it out there, then that's an issue. But again, the jury's not supposed to see anything. So does it really matter if the general public gets my perspective? The juror shouldn't be seeing it anyway. So I'm trying to stay positive, but I'll tell you what, I don't wonder if it's a coincidence that I made a little bit of a ruckus and made this Excel sheet and then I got in the next week. So I don't know. I hope at the very least they do what they did last year, which is once we start jury deliberations, they take all the chairs out and they allow as much media to go in, standing room only. So we're all in there to be able to observe. We were like tuna, you know, in a can last time because everybody wanted to see. So I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before. It's crazy, but there's obviously a lot of public interest, and I think they could have done better. I still go back and get mad at the defense for changing courtrooms. It really would have just benefited everybody to have stayed in that other courtroom. We had much bigger space, more access, and honestly, public would have been able to go in because there was a lot of room in there. So I regret that they did that at the beginning, and it set us up for this very small, intimate courtroom that is just, you know, it's not good for anybody when you have the O'Keefes looking right at the Reeds, and it's too intimate for me.
Question for Mark from Crystal Kulinski. She says, do you think they will call Courtney Proctor to bring in the gift in wishing Karen Reed, or you know what, herself?
I doubt it. I mean, they could again, but I doubt it.
If they're not going to bring up Proctor, why bring in her though, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting thing. It's certainly another punch in the mouth to Proctor and his alleged corruption and just general scumbaggery, if you will, that he's, you know, so easily willing to shrug off a bribe and say, well, you know, don't give it to me, just give it to my wife. That's cool. I mean, you could make a strong argument for why they should do it. I mean, it just goes to the heart of it. That's just a hunch that they seem to be focused on bigger issues and are really still trying to trim the fat, so to speak. But I mean, look, that's worth to me 20 minutes of calling a witness, building foundation, even if it's just for those questions and sit down. But then do you want to open the door to other things? So I think in the grand scheme of it, they just say the hell with it.
Yeah.
Another question from Mark earlier. They wanted to know if you were the other lawyer that was with Jackson when Barrows came to the Omni Parker. You weren't there, right? Were you?
Not me. No, it was not me. I had no idea that what was coming with this today. That was pretty bombshell. No. But it wasn't David, apparently, so I don't know what it means, but it wasn't me.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that. For a lot of these little meetings, right?
I've stayed at the Omni, been there many times, enjoy it.
Very nice place. Yeah.
You know, on that day and time, no, I was nowhere there.
I'll ask this one. We're almost about to wrap it up, but I will ask, like, if I can get this question back up. It went up so quick. I wanted to see this one. Mark, perspective on Brennan asking Dr. Russell about the Karen Reed clips. This is a good one. I thought it was a great moment during her testimony. He was asking her about, the documentary clips. What did you think about that part?
I thought it was stupid, and another example of you're just too much and going down, excuse me, all these rabbit holes of things that she should have considered or didn't consider, and you're going to try to remind the jury of this. But I don't think Dr. Russell is the right witness, given her expertise and what her opinions were, to just start poking and prodding, because a lot of times you're going to get answers that you don't want, like that acute distress testimony, and even on a few other things about why it couldn't be a car that did this. And I mean, to me, that was silly, asking a medical doctor about the impact of interview clips. And what did it do? It invited the acute, whatever the proper term was. That's when it came out. It was that.
Question about the tow truck driver. I believe they were asking, is he on the witness list? I believe he is. Do you think they should call, let's assume he is, should they call the tow truck driver?
Again, how far down are you going? If the tow truck driver would say, I saw the taillight and it looked like Barrows, sure. If he doesn't know, doesn't remember, doesn't tell you what you want to, I mean, unless it's as good as that, no. Their
video out there. Yeah, on YouTube. Have you seen that video out there? It's been out there for a long time. Apparently from the tow truck driver saying that, no, it was... Yeah, said he would have taken a picture, and he seems like he would be a good witness if that's a real video, if that's real audio of him.
It's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I've seen it, but I wouldn't put it past Brennan to be able to find something like an aha moment that would, so weighing it out. I mean, I don't know. And that video has been out for a while. So there's something that, they're going to do recon work on these people. You know what I mean? They found out about Barrows and his meeting at the hotel. So is it worth something like just to corroborate Barrows, who was essentially very authentic and believable? I just be worried. Too. I don't want any witnesses that are coming in here where Brennan's going to get one of those moments and shock us with something. Like, it's not worth it, to me at least. I don't want to see it.
Probably, I don't want any of those moments.
Right.
There's another question I just saw that I want to bring up quickly. Oh, Erica, who was arrested by the Mass State Police in the buffer zone recently. It looks like all charges got dismissed today. Mark Randazza won, apparently. Do you have any comments on that? And I know, Jessica, you've been at the courthouse. Have you noticed a difference in the buffer zone in the last couple of days? Let's go to Mark, and then we'll go to Jessica on this about the buffer zone stuff. You have any comment, Mark, about that stuff?
I think it's great. Big fan of the First Amendment. I've thought the buffer zone has always been, for the most part, a joke, unnecessary. All over the country, people speak their mind. They want to be heard. Where I practice, there's always people screaming about something, protesting anything on any day. Everybody survives. I understand, it's a small courthouse and size and proximity, but did we really need a buffer zone to the point where you're going to have some members of the state police or local police departments acting like stormtroopers and rounding up people for having the temerity to express an opinion on a matter of public concern? I mean, it's America 2025. I think it's ridiculous, all of it. So I'm glad she won.
Me too. Do you want to comment on any of that, Jessica, and what you're seeing outside the courthouse too?
So definitely seeing more people. I've always had a chip on my shoulder about this buffer zone thing because it felt like such overreach. And yet we were left to fend for ourselves as members of the press out in front on the property of this courthouse where I was accosted, where I was dealing with, fake journalists, getting in my face and threatening me. And, it was so pointed towards the Karen Reed supporters. And it shows, number one, okay, you are capable of some restrictions and some parameters, right? But you're misusing that power, right, for the wrong people. So I've had a chip on my shoulder about this from the very beginning. Number two, the reason I felt this way is being in the courtroom almost every day last year, I never heard one person outside those windows, ever. The only day I ever heard anybody was the day that she was told that there was a hung jury, and we heard a loud, roar from the crowd down the street. But not once did I ever hear anybody screaming or anything. More than anything, you hear sirens, right? And that actually has more of an impact on testimony and jurors' ability to hear testimony than any Karen Reed supporter standing out front. They should redirect all of that traffic around the courthouse because that actually made a difference. So again, I have a real problem with this. It's overreach. It's egotistical. And it's obviously against the First Amendment. So I hate it. I love that we've seen these little wins with it, chip away at it over and over and over again. And I also think it sends a good message, especially in the whole parameters of this case. Just because they can doesn't mean they should, and people must push back against those things. You have to, because in essence, what you're doing by pushing back on this is you're laying the foundation for the next time something like this happens. And if you feel like it's insignificant and hey, it's not worth fighting for, think about maybe the next time there's a court case. We've got some coming up with Sandra Birchmore, where you're going to see people coming out and wanting to support, people against police officers. They're going to try to do something like this again. So I'm thrilled. I saw that with Erica today. I was very happy. Yes, we see some people out there, but I'm telling you, the only time we've ever seen anything get crazy is in the press line. And these people out there are just exerting their First Amendment right. I never thought it influenced a juror. We never see the jury. They are nowhere near where these people are. They do a great job of keeping them safe, protecting them. They cut off the streets when they're coming and going. It's just overreach. It was just to stop the movement. That's it.
So true too. I've been streaming both trials now. I've never heard any shouting in any of our streams. The only thing we ever hear is that damn ambulance coming through. Those the fire trucks. That's what we hear. We've never heard anybody yelling or screaming. We've never heard it. We've never heard it. So it doesn't come up in the stream. So
never hear
great
inside
points.
the courtroom either.
Yeah, the sirens come up all the time. It's happened today, happened yesterday. It just happens all the time.
Yep.
What are your final thoughts tonight? We'll go to Bederow. Anything you're looking forward to? Anything you want to leave us with? What do you got for us?
Well, looking forward, I think this thing about was the witness told there was ring video. I mean, that's just interesting, right? To all of us, if you follow this, that would be, wow, how are they going to deal with that? As far as where we are today, there are certain facts in a case like this that are nuclear. And at the end of today, that was one of them. It's really that simple. If the jury credits Barrows and then, of course, is aware of the other issues and, obviously has to deal with Proctor, who's apparently going to be a boogeyman, who's not going to come in, and they find the ARCA witnesses credible, then the case is over. I mean, it is that simple, that if the taillight does not look the same as when the police had it, the state police, and that's credible evidence in the eyes of the jury, the prosecution cannot win. I mean, that is the whole concept of the car accident is in question, which makes it reasonable doubt. I mean, it literally, they're never going to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a car accident that killed John O'Keefe and exploded a taillight if a credible police officer said that that's exactly not what it looked like, and I've got no dog in the fight. So you really, today, things clarified. I mean, that is a watershed moment, and it's a litmus test in the case. It really is. If he's credible, they're cooked.
So Bederow Law, Bederowlaw.com is the website if you're looking to reach out to Mark, or on Twitter at Bederow Law. Jessica Machado, make sure you shout yourself out, all your social media. We pinned it in the chat, your Substack and Twitter, but any social media, make sure you promote them. And any final thoughts tonight for us?
Well, I think I was a little disappointed that the reading of Proctor's text fell flat. We didn't get that wow moment with the see you next Tuesday word actually even being said in court or even being read by the person that actually wrote them. However, I think if we're looking for like a pop culture moment, we've seen more than that this week. We saw Devers in her testimony being defiant, and then we saw today with Barrows and him with that. So I think while maybe yesterday I was feeling a little we got cheated a little bit out of that moment, I think we've made up for it a couple of other times. And the other thing too I just want to mention is TikTok and social media is a bigger part of this trial than it was last time. My kids, I have 3 kids, age 16, 18, and 24, and Karen Reed reels pop up in all of their algorithms. And these moments are being, spliced and cut and then distributed everywhere. I still find it hard to believe that jurors are not coming across any of these things if they're touching a phone. So I'm happy to be in the courtroom. I'm very blessed. I appreciate everybody that follows, my stuff while I'm in there. And I know you pinned all my things, but you can find me on X at Jess Machado Show.
And Substack. I hope everyone's following you on Substack and subscribing.
It's kind of on a little hiatus because I did let everybody know we're just doing work every day on the Reed trial, but it's a good place once this trial is done to pick up all my other investigative journalism. So subscribe for free if you can't afford a subscription. You'll get the same access. So we appreciate all of the support.
You also hit like a big number on Twitter, I think, recently too, didn't you?
I hit 35,000 today. Yeah. And when I started covering this trial last year, I had about 500 followers. So in a year, I went from.
It's like that's around the first when I started following you. You had I remember both of us didn't have as many followers when we discovered each other with Anthony. That's what I think we hooked up with Anthony Amori.
Yes. It just goes to show, I think that, legacy media is coming to a crossroads. All you have to do is ask questions and tell everybody what you get. Tell the truth. So get a public records request, share that information, be honest. People are tired of being lied to, whether it's in the media, whether it's with their politicians, whether it's with their local government. They hate it and they can see right through it. And I think that's why people like me and you and Aiden and others, we just have a no nonsense way of just saying the truth, and people really are thirsty for that. So I don't want mainstream media to catch on because then they'll come and take over what we're doing. But I'm really happy to be a part of this group of journalists that are working to bring the truth to readers.
Seems like the cat's out of the bag. I don't even think if they could catch up now. It's so funny. Especially someone like Aiden. I want to thank you, Attorney Bederow, again for being here last minute. This was an amazing show with Jessica Machado. You're both great guests. The audience loved you tonight. They're just excited about this show that you did tonight. So thank you so much, Mr. Bederow, as Nurse Kim says, and Miss Machado. Thank you, or Mrs. Machado. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Bye, Mark.
Nice.
Wow. We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank Jessica and Mark. See, I don't know if you noticed that. My screen is a little... And now I want to look on YouTube and see if it's the same way. There is something up with the StreamYard tonight where I can't full screen it or change it or move it around. Usually I'd move Mark to the top so the chat wouldn't get in the way. I don't know. There's something wrong with the StreamYard tonight. But we got through. It worked out, and I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank Attorney Mark Bederow for being here tonight. I want to thank Jessica Machado. Make sure you follow them both. Oh, it is full screen on that screen. I think StreamYard, I'm looking at YouTube. It looks totally fine. That's interesting. A lot of weird things on StreamYard the last few weeks. I don't know if people using it have noticed but it doesn't actually show you everything that's happening on YouTube. That's strange. It's totally fine on YouTube, but doesn't look fine on my screen. Hey, as long as it looks good on YouTube. Let's go to the super chats then. I was probably freaking out all night. It's probably work. I wonder if it moved because I couldn't move us tonight. It's weird. I'm just going to read through the super chats. Jay Bean says 199. I need a vibe check from JM, not just reactions. I think we got the vibe check tonight. To make it count, sent 199. Said awesome triad. Let's go. Thank you so much. To make an account. Also, I see you. Sent $2. Says thanks for your tweets. You really get it. Yeah, Jessica's tweets were phenomenal. Sherry Davis became a YouTube member today. Thank you. She's been one. I think, was that a new account? There's actually, I think I'm getting confused. There's a few similar names. Thank you, Sherry. There's also Greg said, I believe Karen is not guilty 100%. With that being said, after Barrows volunteered that he was shown the photo last year, it kind of spiraled from that point, in my honest opinion. Thank you, Greg. Aurora said thank you for all. Love the jerks. Thank you so much, Aura. Java Tom said we saw Hanky at his lowest when he asked Dr. Russell if she had memory issues. I know that was just not good today. To make an account, said Dr. Russell saying oh to Hank. Reality Check says, to all of you, thank you for all you do in this case. Thank you so much, Reality Check, for the super chat tonight. Jennifer C. says, when the car was being towed, snow was not caked on. You noticed that. Gen X Girl Lawyer said 499 says, Commonwealth New Barrows was extremely harmful when Brennan made the choice to cross him for failing to do the same things the Mass State Police failed to do. That was good. That was almost like the Michael Easter stuff, right? It was like that was the closest thing to bringing in Michael Easter, I felt like. And especially when you're trying to throw it at Barrows, he's not the investigator. He's not there to investigate. It's not his case. It's Michael Proctor's case. I mean, that just, we all understand that. Everybody understands. The jury even understands that. Even the Jizzy and Coco's mom said, did Proctor even have a warrant to take the car? I don't think so at that moment. John Horn said 499, not when he ordered it. Anyone looked at Commish Cox 95 friendly fire incident? Yeah, we talked about this last night. Don't believe it's so funny. Oh wait, maybe you're talking about something. Are you talking about when? Yeah, that was a 95. That is right. We did talk about this last night when you said friendly fire. It was more like it was a fist fight. They basically jumped him. The Boston Police Commissioner was chasing. He was undercover. He was chasing a suspect. Some other cops were chasing the same suspect. And they didn't know police officer Cox, undercover, was a police officer, so they assaulted him and beat him up badly. And when they realized he was a police officer, they left him there. And he was left outside, beaten. What an interesting story, right? And now he's pulling the stuff with the police officer yesterday. So yeah, I think that's pretty wild story, John. I know. It's so strange. And it's very strange how Cox never told on the police officers who did it to him, but then he sued them. He sued and got money from the city and stuff. So what a weird, just goes to show you the thin blue line. He's like, do what I do. Don't tell on anyone. You'll get promoted. I mean, isn't that what Cox did too? Mainraid Walsh sent £5, I think it was. Says, so between the time John O'Keefe was found and the car being towed, Proctor has the case solved in 8 hours. Exactly. He's already got it decided before he gets to Karen Reed's parents' house. M sent $9.99. Thank you, M. M is one of our great moderators, our first one. She is like the queen of the ladies in the chat, the women that run our chat here, our mod team. M sent $9.99. I didn't know this. I was expecting this was going to happen maybe tomorrow night or the next couple nights. I didn't think it was going to happen tonight. She says, congrats, Mike, on 50,000. Well, I guess we crossed 50,000 YouTube subscribers tonight. Wow, that was ahead of schedule. I thought it was going to be maybe tomorrow night. With the guests that we had on, push us over the top. Thank you to the guests. You were here tonight. Thank you so much, M. Steeler Girl sent $19.99. She says, didn't AJ say that Sergeant Barrows testified previously in a hearing for the Commonwealth? And they didn't ask him back this time. That's a big deal. That is interesting. It's like they didn't ask Proctor back. Pennies from Heaven became a YouTube member tonight. Thank you so much, Pennies from Heaven. Smurf Paint sent $10. Said, I looked into Bederow. He's not just a FKR pundit on YouTube. He is a top tier. Don't discount him. I totally get why her team wanted him. Bev made a mistake. His opinions are beyond legit. Research, people. Absolutely. I've researched him. I mean, I got to tell you some stories. I've read a lot of stories about him. And you can watch, he's been in a lot of, like, different Lifetime specials and those court Law and Crime and all those court TV. He's been in a lot of cases. And one of the ones I always cite is when the FBI agent was accused of murder. He hired Bederow, and Bederow won the case. I mean, when you're... And this guy wasn't just an FBI special agent, which is impressive. He was a supervisor. So this guy was like a top-level FBI guy. Those guys, when they get in trouble and it's a major capital case, they're not messing around. They're going to find the best attorney they can, and they picked Bederow, and Bederow got him out of the case. And there was, like, I've read stories where Bederow had a cop on the stand and ripped him apart so much that the prosecution dropped the charges. I mean, there's just been a lot of stories. There was recently the Duck Sauce Killer's wife. Did you see that one? He won that one. He's done amazing. He is a top tier attorney, no doubt about it. You are right. And not just like a top tier attorney, top tier like guy that does like murder cases. They're like a different level. Dean S. says, chance for a new case on point. Proctor's Honorable Text at $4.99 says, do all of the motions filled help the defense and Karen in the worst case scenario of needing to file an appeal? Likelihood of FBI pursuing this? We don't know. We have no idea. Yeah, all of this helps Karen. She's got like 100 reasons to appeal, but we don't want her to get convicted. You know what I'm saying? So we don't want her to get convicted. Smurf Paint sent $10 and said, research to those that didn't know need to be reminded. A sent $5 and said, great show. Thanks. Thank you so much, A. Proctor's Honorable Text says, in the unlikely chance Bev sides with the motion of missing witnesses, what's the outcome? Just a statement to the jury. Yes. Be a good statement, though. You got to be jury instruction. Melanie sent, gifted 20 Young Jerks membership. You are very generous. Thank you so much, Melanie. Wow, that's a big gift. Thank you so much, Melanie. Dean Ness sent $1.99. Says, any chance of a new case on point? Jeannie Ireland says, wonder if Bev subpoenaed Russell testifying on Karen Reed mental state because she's not a psych expert witness, even though she's eminently qualified with experience. Thank you, Jeannie. And Jellycats. Jellycats at $5 and says, if Karen is convicted, would she be a good candidate for the Innocence Project? Absolutely. Of course. No, I'm wondering what's going to happen if Karen. I feel like Karen's going to be found not guilty this time. Let's just envision that. Let's just hope for it. Let's make it happen. Let's manifest it. And then I see her maybe working with the Innocence Project. Maybe she's going to help out other people who have been unjustly charged. That's what I just have a feeling. Just see that. Maybe she would be like the best spokesperson ever for the Innocence Project. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to try to redirect. Did I do this right? Let's redirect. I want to redirect the show tonight to Aiden. I believe Aiden's going on live right now. I think he's already live. I've been trying to try to move on, trying to get the show done, but it's you guys are so generous. I want to make sure I read all the turtle chats. Not the turtle chats, my super chats. Now we got to go watch Aiden so we can watch him do his turtle chats. Here it is. I'm going to redirect to Aiden tonight. That's tonight, right? June 3rd, 9:01. He's already going. So I guess that's what we're going to do. Let me just check the Venmo and the Cash App, make sure I didn't miss anyone from earlier today or last night. I think I'm going to be live tomorrow night as well. Kelly R sent $50 on the Venmo tonight. Wow, you are very generous. Thank you, Kelly. She says, thanks for all you do, Mike. You've been a huge part of this movement. You've earned lifelong followers in the way you conduct your journalism. Kelly and Mike. Oh, thank you so much, Kelly and Mike W. Wow, that's thank you so much, Kelly. Diane G says, YouTube won't let me gift. Thanks for showing up. Thank you, Diane G. I appreciate it on Venmo even more. Wow, you're being wicked generous tonight. I got another 50 from Laura S. She said, great show tonight, Mike. Thank you. Cheryl T also sent $20, and that was last night. She said, hope the missing witness isn't Lucky. He was there last week, but Welcher took so long, so he didn't testify. Great shows, Mike. Watch all the time. I don't think it's Lucky. I think Bederow, all my sources are telling me, everything I'm seeing, all the, it's Proctor. It's going to be three of them. It's going to be Proctor. It's going to be Higgins. It's going to be Brian Albert. It's going to be those three. I believe. We'll see. I think, man, I want to see Higgins on the stand. I want to see Proctor the most. That's why I'm kind of disappointed. I want to see Matt McCabe on the stand again. Those are the ones I'm looking forward to. But hey, if she gets a not guilty and they don't go on the stand, that's fine too, right? That's what we're all hoping for. All right, let me just check the Cash App real quick. And again, we'll be live tomorrow night. We'll see you tomorrow morning as well. We'll be streaming. It's going to be half day from court tomorrow. Athena C sent $40 on the Cash App, and she said, great show. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure if I got Beverly H on last Friday. Said, thanks, Mike. Also sent $20 on the Cash App. All right, I think I'm good to go. No more Venmos, right? All right. Hopefully my StreamYard doesn't get wonky like it did tonight. I was having some issues. I think it's on my computer end. I've been noticing this with StreamYard. It can get funky sometimes, and it got a little strange tonight working the system, but I could tell it was working on YouTube, which is, if it works on YouTube, that's fine, right? I can deal with the funkiness. But that's one of the reasons I wasn't able to put all your comments up, because on my screen they were showing up that they were going over mark. I don't know if it showed up that way on YouTube, but that's the way it was looking. So that's why I didn't post any of the questions, and I was just reading them tonight. I hope everyone understands. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's been here all day. Thank you so much, Sarah in Shock and Horror. I want to thank Jen O. I saw her earlier today, too, in the chat. I want to thank Stephanie, especially MJ, and Scott McGinnis. I didn't forget you, Scott. I guess I forgot Scott yesterday when I was talking about who's on DJ's show. I'll never forget you again, Scott. All right, I'm out of here. Well, let's go watch Turtle Boy. I'll see you over there. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you to Attorney Mark Bederow. Follow him on Twitter, X, at Bederow Law, and Jess Machado at Jess Machado Show. Make sure you follow her on Twitter, X, as well. And definitely make sure you subscribe on her Substack. Make sure you follow her links there. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.